morning. Almost noon. Real cool here in Atlanta. Glad to wake up in the morning and open up the book of Exodus 22. And today I'm going to read from the NIV. I printed it out because it was going to be my backup. Because the King James is what I think I like the best. It's just a preference of mine because I like to search for all of the words that I don't know. And for whatever reason, I kind of trust the King James a little bit more than I do some other versions. But I'm getting ready to take you to God's house. This is not a house that I have a right to say, I don't think I like the way you got that picture hung. And why do you park your cars like this? And furthermore, Father, why did you paint your house that color? It's just not I don't think it's the right color. And he doesn't say anything. He said, come on in. And he does not address my foolishness because this is his house. And he's allowing me to look in and to come in. And in fact, he said, I want you to not only come in, I want you to live here. He never addresses what I don't like. Now, he will tell me some things that I may not understand. And then he doesn't go into details and tell me everything about that because I have to trust that he knows how he wants his house and he knows how he wants the people to be that lives in his house. So we're going to look at the Word of God and go into God's house and let him show us around, tell us how he ran things, what his people had to do, the members of his family. And we're just going to sit there and be quiet. And then he's going to open up the invitation and say, you want to be a part? But that's, of course, it's going to happen after he take us through the house that he had, his old house. And this is what he had going on. I'm in the Old Testament, and he's showing me what actually happened, and he's telling me the truth. So come on in with me, like the people say, come on with me, and let's go into the house of the Lord. Yes, let's see what's going on. All right, this is Exodus chapter 22. And God is getting ready to set up some rules. And they are very, 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 very interesting. All right, verse number 1, and I'm reading from the NIV. Sirens. God has some sirens too. In fact, he ordained the sirens. And I pray that everybody that's behind the car that has a siren, that you find the favor of God and let God work through you as you execute the law for those who are lawless. That's my job. My job is to pray for those who God has assigned to be angels over this earth. And may we all be corrected so that we can all live in harmony as God has given us the right to. All right, verse number 1, NIV. Whoever steals an ox or a sheep, whoever steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters it or sells it must pay back 5 heads of cattle for the ox and 4 sheep for the sheep. This is God's house. Anybody that steals a sheep, anybody that steals an ox, if you take an ox and you steal it, pay back 5 times as much. So what is God trying to do? Tell people the penalty for stealing is not worth it. If you got 1 sheep out of the deal or out of the stolen whatever you thought you got, and you get caught, you got to pay 5 times that much. That's foolishness. Stealing is foolishness. He said, now this is God saying it. This is the penalty for taking. And he said, I'm telling you now, you take away 5. If you take away 1, you got to pay back 5. If you take away, that's the ox. And the ox is transportation, it's food, it's shelter, it's a lot of things that you get from an ox. And the sheep may not be able to ride on the sheep, but the sheep has his needs, so you can give me back 4 of those for your one that you stole. If a thief is caught breaking in at night and is struck a fatal blow, the defender, the person who struck him, the person who had the right to defend his property, is not guilty of bloodshed. If you go into somebody's house at night, they don't have to try to see no. They don't have to ask you what you doing. He said you go in there, and the guy that's gonna strike and kill you, it would be no question asked. I'm sorry for your loss. How y'all have a good day, and he locks his door and go on back in and fix the problem that you created, bringing that problem on that man that time of night. But if it happens in the daylight, but if he happens to kill you in the daytime, God got this thing. But if it happens after sunrise, the defendant is guilty of bloodshed if he kills you. God made a distinction. He said, nighttime thieves, no problem if you kill them. But a daytime thief, he said it's going to be a problem if you shoot him in the daytime. I never saw that before. I read it over and over again, but this is written. Oh, he's not going to get off now. Let's just see what God had to say. But if it happens after sunrise, the defendant is guilty of bloodshed. But he goes back to this, anyone who steals must certainly make restitution. He said, I'm not saying that you're going to get off. He said, but a man coming in your house at nighttime, and then you see what he doing in the daytime, you get a little more help in the daytime. So you're going to have to handle it a little bit different. Because you start killing them in the broad daylight, then you got to answer a lot of questions. He said, you're not going to be guiltless if you kill him in the daytime. But you're going to have to, that's interesting. Anyone who steals must certainly make restitution, but if they have nothing, they must be sold to pay for their theft. In other words, if he steals, he got to pay back. And if he can pay the fine, then he can go on back in life. But if he can't, you got to lock him up. And not lock him up the way we do it. Lock him up and he is to be sold into slavery and go to work. You're not going to sit up there with all those able-bodied men sitting around on a bench for 50 years and your streets got trash that they could be picking up, or they got buildings that need to be built. They just won't get paid. That's what they had to do. They became a slave. I like the way God thinks. But when I got to that man that's still in the daytime, he said, that's a different type of theft. He said, I looked at that. Let's see what the word said. That is verse 2. If a thief be found breaking up and be smitten that he die, there should be blood be shed for him. If the sun be risen upon him, there should be blood shed for the person who killed him. So that lets me know that God said all crimes is not a one-size-fits-all. So, you know, the kind of thieves that rob in the daytime, and as I was thinking about this, but God was talking about cattle in this particular case. But a lot of people steal in the daytime. I wonder if God saying, if you killed everybody that stole in the daytime, the earth would have very many people. He's got people be stealing all kind of ways. Go to work stealing. Go to church stealing. He just says a different type. But the person that does the killing in the daytime, your penalty is you're gonna have a problem. So we'll get back to that if necessary. Verse number 4. If the stolen animal is found alive, the one that he stole, still talking about the same thief. If the stolen animal is found alive in their possession, whether it's an ox or a donkey or a sheep, they got to pay back double. So if he steals them and he's found alive, if the stolen animal is found alive in their possession, whether ox, donkey, or sheep, they must pay back double. Let me look at the fourth. I keep having to go back to King James because that's throwing me off too. If the theft be certainly found in his hand alive, whether it be an ox or ass or sheep, he shall restore double. So if the guy in the daytime, if he's stealing stuff and he got it and everybody saw him, he got to pay back double. I'm not sure why the penalty is different, but that's what the word says. Oh, that's what happened. I got it. The first time it said whoever steals an ox or sheep and slaughters it. Excuse me. The first, I knew something was getting my attention. Whoever steals an ox or sheep and slaughters it, or they kill it and sell it. He said, you killed it and you sold it. He said, you got to pay back 5 oxes and 4 sheep. But the fourth verse said, but if the animal is found alive and in his possession, whether it's an ox, a donkey, or a sheep, you got to pay it double. So that stealing and killing it and selling it, that means it's a much higher penalty. But if you still got it and they still can make use of it from the person that you stole it from, still can make use of it, then you just got to give him double. Not saying that either one is worth your time, but just God is saying there's a different fine for each type of crime. All right, then he talks about that. That's stealing. That's if you decide to steal somebody's cattle. Verse 5. If anyone grazes their livestock in a field or vineyard and let them stray, and they graze in someone else's field. If anybody grazes, let their livestock in a field or vineyard and let them stray, and they graze in someone else's field. In other words, if you letting your animals do their thing and then they get off into somebody else's field, the offender must make restitution from the best of their own field or vineyard. Now, if you got a place and then you leave your animals unattended, if you got a dog and you let your dog roam the streets and we find out that it's yours, it is God's law for you to be penalized. You don't have that right. If that's your animal and he's supposed to be in your yard and you're supposed to be watching it, God said you just can't let stuff go just because you were being negligent. So if you had a spot in your flock was grazing, and then he goes into somebody else's and you're not paying attention to what you're doing, he said you got to pay restitution. All right, let's bring it home to us. If you walk out of your classroom and leave your class unattended and they get into something they shouldn't be doing, you got to pay restitution. Anything that we do and we find it, we don't oversee it the way, in other words, if you leave your child in a car and all of these things that the laws have, all these things came from God. Now they derived into certain other areas, but the heart of the things, God has said, you got to pay attention to what I gave you to oversee. You just can't be negligent. Otherwise, you got to pay the fine. This is God. This is God already knowing what man needs. He already knows what man would do. He said, I know what's in you. I know what you'll do. So I'm setting you up to understand that there are orders in order to be a part of my team, a part of my house. You can't, he said one thing, you don't see nobody on here that I'm talking about being lazy. These are the people that's being negligent, not lazy. Mm-hmm. Well, is it a difference between being negligent and lazy? You're too lazy to do your job right? Well, anyway, God is letting you know, pay attention to what you have and take care of and mind your business. Stay in your lane. Watch what you own so it won't cause somebody else's pain. That rhymes. Number 6, verse 6 of chapter 22. If a fire breaks out and spreads into the thorn bushes so that it burns shock of grain or standing grain or in the whole field, the one who started the fire must make restitution. God said, now I know what y'all will do now. And I had to look up that, why did they have them thorn bushes in there? Because they were trying to protect the thieves from just walking in there getting their corn. So you come in here, first thing I'm going to have out is the thorn bushes so you can get stuck. And I can hear you holler and then I can know I need to come. And then that fire burns the thorn bushes, and then it gets to my corn. He said, you got to pay for that. God has said, I got you. You got to, anytime you establish a business, you got to sit the people down and get them trained to understand what you can and what you can't do. That's that opening few days of school where the teachers have to sit in meetings and go over the pros and the cons of working here. The sad thing about it is the list has gotten longer. And they take up all the time. And you got to sign all these documents saying that you were warned. Yeah, because sin has increased. And the restitution of sin has also increased. All right? We do so many things without God that it's almost gonna merit what God hates to do, and that's just take life. Because we can't hardly teach because we got so many rules that kids are breaking and teachers are breaking, until it's almost worth not even having school because the rules are just taking too long to. You got this many rules. You got 15,000 last year, and this year you got to add another 17,000 because they've learned more slick way, and all we got to do is get God's word. And you can really teach, but now you got to, and you just got to have an incarceration prevention, and then you might get a chance to teach. If anyone gives a neighbor silver or gold, if anyone gives a neighbor silver or goods for safekeeping, in other words, if I give you some of my stuff, I said, keep this for me. If anyone gives a neighbor silver or goods for safekeeping, and they are stolen from the neighbor's house, the thief, if caught, must pay back double. If I said, will you keep this till I get back? I'm going out of town. And then while you have my things in your possession, somebody steals it, you gotta pay back. The thief, whoever took it, must pay back double. But if the thief is not found, suppose you let somebody keep some of your stuff and the thief can't be found, then you look mighty suspicious. You said a thief took it, and I left it in your possession? Oh, God said, I got a plan for that. But if the thief is not found, the owner of the house must appear before the judge, and they must determine whether the owner of the house has laid hands on the other person's property. I told you to keep it. You agreed that you would. And all of a sudden, my stuff is gone. You know we got to go to court. And the judge has to determine what really happened. He said, but in all cases of illegal possession of an ox, a donkey, a sheep, clothes, or any other lost property about which somebody says, this is mine, both parties are to bring their cases before the judge. Both parties are to bring their case before the judge. The one whom the judge declare guilty must pay back double to the other. In other words, we got to hear this out. Now tell me what you say happened. Okay, sir, it's your turn. Now you are the person that decided that you would, be the caretaker of that person's possession, right? Now you give me your side of the story. And then the judge said, now I've heard your case. You guilty. You let that man, I'm just saying, if it could be proven, make sure that when you take somebody else's possession and say, I'll look over, know that God is saying that you might have to appear before a court if the stuff is not the way it should be when the owner comes back to possess it. Look at God. Why is it that we don't learn this in the house, that in God's house? I mean, the one that got God's name on the outside. I was just thinking, what if everybody went back to church and actually sat in a place where you learn this stuff? What if we just agreed that we don't know this? I didn't. All right. So we do it. Okay, that's settled with the judge, and God has said, okay, that works. All right. Verse 12. But if the animal was stolen from the neighbor, just in case he was stolen, restitution must be made to the owner. Did I really? Okay, wait. Let me go back to the 11th verse. The issue between them will be settled by the taking of the oath. In other words, do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God? Do you promise to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? You got to take an oath before God. This is what the word says. The issue between them will be settled by the taking of the oath before the Lord, that the neighbor did not lay hands on the other person's property. The owner is to accept this, and no restitution is required. So once you all take it before the judge and the judge handles it, the owner has to accept the fact that whatever the ruling that the judge made, it is settled. So you can walk back out of the house in harmony, knowing, okay, I presented my case. Verse 12, but if the animal was stolen from the neighbor, restitution must be made to the owner. But if it was stolen from the person that had the possession to keep it, then you have to pay that guy money for losing or his stuff having been stolen from your house. If it was torn to pieces by a wild animal, the neighbor shall bring the remains as evidence and shall not be required to pay for the torn animals. He said, I found out that I told you I didn't take it. The animals that I had, and they said, where's the proof? Bring it in. And they bring the proof in, and he said, if it was torn to pieces by a wild animal, the neighbor shall bring in the remains as evidence and shall not be required to pay for the torn animal. So you got evidence that you didn't take it. You got evidence. If you did take it, you got to pay if somebody stole it and it was in your care. But if you got proof that the animal tore it up, and here's the evidence that you didn't know that happened, then he said, and it shall not be required to pay for the torn animal. You got to bring your evidence. If anyone borrows an animal from their neighbor and it is injured or dies while the owner is not present, they must make restitution. If you borrow my lawnmower, you borrow it, and you tear it up, the word said, this is God talking, you got to pay back restitution. You borrowed it. I let you use my lawnmower, and you tore it up. Why are we having a dispute about something God already settled? You can't borrow things from somebody else and it tears up in their care, and then you say, well, I can't help it. We can have that eliminated. The word said. You don't even have to go to the judge or pay an attorney, but God has already settled this. It's settled in heaven. Therefore, it's settled in earth. But if the owner is with the animal, the borrower will not have to pay. If the animal was hired, the money paid for the hire covers the loss. If I ask you to mow my yard and your mower or your mow tears up, that's not my fault. Now, if you let me use it and I tear it up, then I'm responsible. But if you brought your mower to my house and it tears up, I'm not responsible. This is what God had to give people to let them know these things are going to happen. But check my word, because every law has to be connected to what I said. Otherwise, I don't know. It just has to be connected to what God already established. Then number 16, if a man seduces a girl, a virgin, who is not pledged to be married, she's not not engaged to anybody, and sleeps with her, he must pay the bride price, and she shall be his wife. If you sleep with a girl and you just bought yourself a wife, or you said bought, yep, you got to pay the bride's price. In other words, you got to give alimony before you ever get her. Whatever it costs. How much is, if she came from a rich man's house, you got to pay a rich man's price. You don't just get a daughter and sleep with her. You got to let whatever it costs to, whatever she was used to having before you ask her to marry you. That's the price you got to pay. You slept with that girl, so now the alimony got to be paid up front. But if her father absolutely refuses to give her to you, you still got to pay the bride's price for virgin. You had no business sleeping with her. Her daddy got to give you away. Her daddy has to be the one to say, you can have my daughter. But you slept with my daughter before you asked my permission. Give me my daughter back and pay me the money that you were to give me for her. And you're still not going to give her. That's the word. But we got the prenup thing. We got all kind of Americanized ways. My husband got this. Or whatever it is. You want my daughter. The father had the right to say how much it would cost for you. Let me see how much. I don't make that much, but I know what she deserves. So don't be saying, well, I'm going to marry me somebody from a broke family. I ain't got to pay that much. No, it don't work like that. Whatever it was for the price for you to obtain a wife, you had to get it up front. And I don't know if that money was saved by the father to say, just in case you don't want us, we ain't lost nothing. You send her back, but you ain't walking out with my daughter that give me some. They call it a dowry. That, does it, hey. Interesting. That man said, you didn't have my daughter, you still gonna pay me. Do not allow a witch to live, a sorceress. He said, don't make provision for anything wicked. Don't allow it to live. Don't let nobody get in the way and prevent. He said, don't allow them to live. And somebody said, well, I thought God said, thou should not kill. Do not allow a witch to live. Don't let everybody know that if you're trying to get your daily bread from a witch, don't do it. Don't let them have a building. Don't give them anything that they can survive off of. Take the air conditioning from them. Take everything that don't you get these human beings all confused. Don't allow that witch to live. That's the word. 19, anyone who has sexual relationship with an animal is to be put to death. Anyone, that's plain and simple. Some things I'm just not going to touch. Anybody that has a sexual relationship with an animal is to be put to death. Whoever sacrificed to any god other than the Lord must be destroyed. Anybody that sacrifices anything other than the Lord God, the creator of all things, must be destroyed. Do not mistreat or oppress a foreigner, for you were foreigners in Egypt. He said, when you see somebody that comes in and may speak another language and they try to get used to the United States, and I'm saying United States or your country, don't take advantage of those people. Don't do it. God got this thing. He know all the tricks of the trade. You know what people will do. I've seen it happen. Verse 22, do not take advantage of the widow or the fatherless. He said, you ever want to get on my nerve? You mess with the widow and you mess with the fatherless. If you do, and they cry out to me, I will certainly hear their cry. If you go in a woman's house, knowing that she does not have a husband, and she needs you to do some business around the house, and you take advantage of that woman, and she knows how to cry out to God, he said, my ears are ready. He says, 2 people on this earth, you better be careful that you don't touch. That's a widow and a child without a father. Because if they cry to me, I don't care what I'm getting ready to do. I don't care what's going on in the earth. You tell that baby, if anybody touch you and you cry out to God, God said, I will. I give you my word. I will come as soon as I hear your cry. Cry to me. Teach your children to cry to me. Women without husbands, and you don't nobody want you, God said, cry out to me. Anybody try to take advantage of you, get to know me. I don't play. I know you need a covering. A man means a lot. A man, a human being as a man, you are a protection over a family, but just in case you don't have one. Just in case. There's not a daddy in the house. God said, if you cry out to me, I'm a-coming. I hear you. I am coming. He said, my anger will be aroused, and I will kill you with a sword. Your wives will become widows, and your children fatherless. I will rebuke the devil out of a man if he touches a child. He said, I'll build that thing, so all they got to do is cry. If that child is trained, teach your children to cry out to God. Said if that man comes in there and he lays his hand on you, and that child knows how to holler at me, you got my anger, and my anger is aroused. He said your wife is going to be a widow, and your children are going to be fatherless. That's how powerful a man is. Having a man in the house is a blessing, but if that man messes up and you cry out to God, you still gonna have God's insurance. But I'm just saying, it's so much of that going on. God says, I don't have to get graphic about it. That's verse 24. We got God's safety, but we don't know his word. And so we run to the government who refuses his word, and we still have an ongoing problem. If you lend money to one of my people among you who is needed, if you got somebody in the body of Christ now, back then it was if you're a Hebrew and you lend some money to one of my Hebrews, one of my children of Israel, do not treat it like a business deal. He said, don't treat your brother like a business deal. Charge no interest. He said, this is your brother. You don't charge interest to your brother. You already know you're having a hard time. If you take a pledge from him, if you take a cloak as a pledge, return it by sunset. Give it to him. Give it back to him. He said, don't make him suffer. He gave you what he had. He said, let him have it back, because that cloak is the only covering your neighbor has. What else can they sleep in? When they cry out to me, I will hear, I will have compassion. We need to know our rights in the word. So if somebody, a brother is in need, you can't take what he has and then you know he needs what you has as a promise. He said, give it back to him. Don't let him go home without it. And he may come back tomorrow and say, I need to give it to you again. He said, help him out, if you can. 28 verse, do not blaspheme God or curse the ruler of your people. Now, when I read in the King James verse, it was a lowercase g. But I saw that some of the translators made it a capital G. But let's just keep it as a lowercase g. Who is God? Who has God put in position to have that name? He said, don't blaspheme the police. That's why when an officer does wrong, you got God's guarantee. He knows how to bring what you can't. You can't. These men, God said, the word says they are as angels. So you got to be careful how you treat them, even when they're wrong. You got to let God do it. You got to trust God to back off. You got to allow the God to take his course. But we get in a hurry before God. God said, I'll just tell you how it is in my house. He said, that's how I run my house. Now, if you want to do something different, but if you're going to let me handle it, I know how to bring correction. In fact, I know how to remove, and I know how to put in. I can put the right one in, and I promise you, I ain't going to pull the wrong tooth. I can pull the wrong tooth and put a right tooth right back in there. But that's only if you want to do it my way. If you want to, if you want to serve the police and they're doing things now, I saw on the news where they putting stuff in their food that they serve. You can't do that. You can't. Because if God tell every last one of them, pack your bags and move, who you gonna call? That's all I'm saying. Let God do it. Because the truth be told, every last one of us need the word of God. Every last one of us need to know how to play our position. I'm just telling you what God said is going on in his house. Now, if you got another way of doing it, God said, by all means. But if you want it done the way I say it, you got to let me be the one that lead. This is what that verse says. Let's go back to that. Do not blaspheme God or curse the ruler of your people. Who's the ruler? Who's the leader of your country? If you're from Africa, who's the leader of your country? Are you supposed to be at home cursing the leader? This is the word. This is God's house. God is like, if you want a good leader, then you be a good leader. That's God's word. But we think that the church is almost, the church you go in there and they talk about the leader. What you think the community gonna do? If you talk about your leader, and I often tell people, I said, you want a man to be like God, but you don't want the man to have the instructions of God. Then I look at you in your life and wonder, why do you want a good leader? If I'm doing what the leader does in my own house, but I want my leader to do right that's in the White House, what's wrong with that picture? I'm going back to God's house to see what he said. Verse 29 or 28. Do not blaspheme God or curse the ruler of your people. That's God's house. He said, I told you, Brenda, open up that thing. Let them know this is my house. If you want something different, I just step back. Because you don't want what I got to say, because that's how I run things. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do in this house. I'm going to not blaspheme God or curse the ruler of my house, of the United States. I'm not going to do it. I want this 100%. I need to know I'm 100% protected. I ain't doing it. And then my position is to pray for the person that's in charge. To be a leader of people, you're not going to please everybody. But the believer talking about the leader, and the word clearly said, don't do it. You can change things if you act right. And what was that? You can change things if you act right. I was trying to swallow something, I guess. You can move mountains, but you got to do it right. Do not hold back offerings from your, what the words are that I can't pronounce that word. 29. What just said 29? I got to go back to King James because they done stuck a word here I can't explain. Thou shalt not delay to offer the first of your ripe fruits and of your liquors. The firstborn of your son shall you give unto me. God said, whatever I ask you to give it to me first. Don't delay it. Don't tell me, let me go do this first and then I'll bring it back. He said, don't make excuses. Give me mine first. Let me have whatever that is set aside for me. Honor me. Let me have it first. I'm thinking like, Lord, I can't argue with that. Do not hold back offerings from your barns or your vats. You must give me the firstborn of your son. That's what he said. No excuses. Brenda. Do the same with your cattle and your sheep, your stuff. Let them stay with their mothers for 7 days, but give them to me on the 8th day. Last verse. You are to be my holy people. You're going to be my set-aside ones. You're going to be different. The world can do as the world does, but my people got to follow the rules of my house. You are to be my holy people, so do not, and then he ends this like this in the 22nd chapter. So do not eat the meat of an animal torn by wild beast. That tickled me when out of all that he said, he went back, he said, oh, I don't know if he said, oh, let me tell y'all this. He said, you are to be my holy people. So do not eat the meat of an animal torn by wild beast. Throw it to the dogs. What is God saying? That it just came to me. Might be, I believe. I think I might have got some. You are to be my holy people. So don't you eat from anybody else's table. If anybody give you something from a wild beast, a person that don't pay attention to my word, a person that just throw things at you, he said, throw that stuff out to the dogs. Take my word and follow my instruction. Anything else is coming from something wild. Don't eat it. Throw it back out there too. Give it back to the dogs. That's what I got. Talk to y'all later. Love y'all. Bye.